And now, Backstage Wife, the story of Mary Noble and what it means to be the wife of a famous star. Rupert Barlow's plans to destroy the marriage of Mary and Larry Noble seemed to be succeeding. But when he phoned her at her small hotel in the West 40s in New York to say that he wanted to give her the emerald bracelet that caused such a scene at Christmas time, Mary was far from pleased. In fact, she berated Rupert severely and stated that she never intended to see him again. Meantime, Rupert's servant Victor is nursing a grievance of his own, as he explains to Claudia Vincent.
I'm giving you a chance to make a killing in a big-time way, Miss Vincent, so you better think about it real quick.
Listen, Victor. Mr. Jordan's housekeeper will be back any minute, and if she finds
Relax.
you here...
I ain't going to be run off by Mr. Jordan's housekeeper or anybody else. I came here to have a heart-to-heart talk with you.
I don't want to have anything to do with you.
Yeah, you're real independent these days, ain't you, Miss Vincent? You think because you got this Lester Jordan guy falling for your line, you're sitting pretty. Well, you're making a big mistake, sister. Because you know all I got to do is tell the guy a few facts and your whole act will fall apart.
Somehow I don't think you will, though, because you know just as well as I do that it's to your advantage to keep quiet about everything concerning the murder of Oliver Wilson.
I just want to be sure you don't plan to pull any tricks on me when that trial begins, Miss Vincent.
I don't know what you mean by that.
Maybe
I don't care.
Maybe you think I don't know what you're up to. Visiting Larry Noble in the jail. Promising his friend Jordan you'll help Mr. Noble at the trial.
And what have you got to say about that?
Plenty. You just go easy, that's all. Don't you go spilling a lot of talk on the witness stand. You'll find out it'll come back at you.
Your threats are not very impressive, Victor. You wouldn't get very far if you tried to turn on me.
Look, I don't want to turn on you. That's why I came here. I'm offering you a swell proposition. I'm offering you a sure thing instead of peanuts. And you haven't got sense enough to grab it.
Just because you have a grudge against Rupert Barlow is no reason why you should think that I'd risk my reputation to help you.
Oh, your reputation. That's a hot one, all right. Just like I didn't know you've been trying to blackmail the boss for years. Listen, Miss Vincent. This is a sure thing, I tell you. We can frame the guy easy and collect at least $50,000. We divide even Steven.
I still don't like the idea, Victor.
It's a cinch. I told you the boss is in a spot. He's trying to make me the goat. He's really nuts for that Mrs. Mary Noble. He can't think of nothing else. And still, she don't hardly give him a tumble.
He ought to have sense enough to see that she's playing him for big stakes. Why, she'd listen to him fast enough if he offered to marry her. She'd start suit for divorce from Larry Noble in a hurry.
That ain't the point, Miss Vincent. What I'm trying to tell you is the boss has put himself on a spot by getting me to fix up those pictures of him and Mrs. Noble and get them printed in the papers. He fired me to square himself with Mrs. Noble. He told her he found out it was me that did all the dirty work and sold them out to Marty Rufus and the other gossip writers. Then he fires me. I don't like being the goat. But it puts me in a nice spot to shake down the boss.
How?
I know all the story about how he's been chasing Mrs. Noble. I tell it to you, and together we can hold a club over the guy's head. So he got to pay us to keep our mouths shut.
And why should you want to cut me into your lovely little scheme, Victor? Why not manage it all by yourself?
Well, because it's better this way. It's a lot better. With two of us knowing the whole story, we can really go after the guy. Besides, he wouldn't be liable to try any rough stuff.
I see. In other words, Victor, you want to use me to protect yourself.
What if I do? It's a nice little proposition, isn't it? I guess you could use your share of that dough, Miss Vincent?
No. No, Victor, I don't want to have any part of it. You just count me out. I prefer to manage things in my own way.
You better watch your step if you know what's good for you. Just think it over. I won't hang around anymore right now, but I'll be back. And don't you forget it. You're not going to double-cross me.
Only I could get rid of that man once and for all. If I could be sure that he was out of the way, I wouldn't have anything to worry about.
Claudia Vincent paces nervously up and down the living room as she considers her danger. At this same time, we find Larry Noble with his lawyer, Hubert Savage, in earnest consultation in the visiting room of the New York City jail.
I think we've covered everything possible before the trial starts, Mr. Noble. I've outlined the pattern the prosecution will undoubtedly follow.
Right, Mr. Savage.
Their contention is that you were so desperately infatuated with Claudia Vincent that you lost your head when you found out she had secretly married this handsome young ne'er-do-well, Oliver Wilson, from Bermuda. That you trapped him backstage at your theater and killed him.
As far as I can see, it's their story against mine.
That's exactly what I'm hoping, Mr. Noble. Of course, now that we have Claudia Vincent as a defense witness, our story is just that much stronger. If she tells the jury what she told us about overhearing the struggle between the murdered man and Barlow's chauffeur, Victor, it will certainly do a lot to shift the weight of suspicion from you.
Better keep an eye on her, Savage. Make sure she doesn't suddenly slip away.
Why, what makes you think she might do that?
I don't know. I just don't want to take any chances. She's our best witness. I mean to use every bit of help I can to beat this case.
I hope your determination will continue, Mr. Noble. It's very important that you keep up your fighting spirit.
Don't worry about that. I'm not going to let down. Not anymore.
Good. And now that you're looking at this sensibly, I want you to do one thing more.
What's that?
I want you to forget all about this temporary flare-up in your domestic life.
That's something you'll have to leave to my judgment, Mr. Savage.
On the contrary, the worst thing you could do is to allow this rift between you and your wife to become public knowledge.
I don't see why that should matter to anyone except me.
Don't you see? It would lend credulity to the rumors that have been so prevalent throughout this case. Rumors of your wife's interest in Rupert Barlow, as well as the rumors about your infatuation for Claudia Vincent. It will make all the difference in the world if you convince the court that you and your wife are solidly united.
What makes you think my wife will agree to that, Mr. Savage?
Oh, she's desperately anxious to help you, to stand by you through this trial.
Yes, she must be. I suppose that's why she's kept right on seeing Rupert Barlow in spite of my violent protests.
That is something you can settle later on, Mr. Noble. For your own sake, you must not allow this attitude to become known.
Have you suggested this to Mary?
Yes. She agrees completely. She's urged me to do what I could to get you to permit her to visit you here.
All right. If you think it's so important, tell her by all means to visit me. Tell her to bring baskets of fruit or anything else to impress the world of her undying devotion. Let the crime reporters get a picture of our beautiful relationship. If she's up to it, so am I.
Mr. Noble, you must be very careful to conceal any trace of bitterness. It would be very harmful.
Don't worry about that. I've made my living by acting. Tell Mary that I'm eagerly awaiting her visit.
Oh, that's fine, Mr. Noble. It's a great relief to me to hear you say this. And I know it will be an even greater relief to Mrs. Noble. I'll call her at once, and she'll undoubtedly be here very soon. I guess that's all for now, then. I'll see you later today.
Anytime, Mr. Savage. You'll always find me home.
And in less than an hour, Larry returns to the visiting room to find his wife Mary waiting for him. A look of anxiety on her face as the guard opens the door.
Oh, darling, I'm so glad you're back. It's so wonderful to see you.
Oh, Larry. Oh, my darling, if you only knew. Hold me tight. Hold me in your arms.
All right. You don't have to carry on the act any longer. There's no one watching us.
Why, Larry, what do you mean? I don't understand.
This show of devotion. Very good. I admire your acting, my dear. But you needn't waste your talent when there's no one to notice. Save it for the courtroom.
But I thought... When you came in, you seemed so glad. I thought you realized that this is all a terrible mistake.
It's a mistake, all right, Mary. A sad mistake. But my lawyer told me it's vital to my case to put on a show of marital felicity. It's very good of you to agree to do this for me.
But, Larry, don't you realize that I love you more than anyone in the world?
Let's not carry this act to the point of absurdity, Mary. It's quite clear to me that your interests are more suitably placed in Rupert Barlow's world. It's understandable, of course. He's a far more important person in every way. He can provide you with all the luxury you've apparently missed in your life with me.
But that's not true, Larry. It's not true at all. If you're referring to the Christmas present Rupert tried to give me, the card that was sent to his secretary, Julia Dixon, by mistake...
I'm not interested in any more explanations, nor in a discussion of Rupert Barlow's secretary.
But you've got to listen to me, Larry. You've got to know that I'm furious with Rupert, that I told him over the phone I never wanted...
Wait a minute, Mary, please. Do me the favor not to say any more about it now. Not when we're alone, at any rate. Save your histrionics for the courtroom. And when this trial is over, if I'm acquitted, I'll arrange to give you a divorce at once.
Mary looks at her husband in horror as she realizes he is deadly serious. Well, be sure to be listening tomorrow to Backstage Wife, the story of Mary Noble and her husband Larry Noble, famous Broadway star.